Before my battery completely runs out, I want to have this portion put into the front of this video. Because in the video, you're going to hear me talk about listening to that dog leg that's on the bolt drop off the cam back onto the hammer. And I mentioned that you'll probably want to have it drop off when the hammer face is probably flush or close to being flush with this portion of the frame. Ideally, when you look at your ring right here that stops the cylinder from going back, the ring that's the cylinder stop, anywhere in there should do the trick. What I'm dealing with right now is I've got two cones taller than the other four. And when I look at everything in good light, and when I listen for that to drop, the leg is dropping just as the face becomes flush with the ring. So I'm going to make those adjustments, and from here on out, this will be the rest of the video. Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on this video, and welcome to my new shop / storage unit. Having been a trader for over 30 years, is a lot of product that I've made and a lot of material that I use in making my product, and for all these years a lot of it has just been stored in the house. So my wife and I decided it was time to do something a little bit different, and it is a whole lot more convenient. Let me get inside, kind of give you a quick overview, and then we'll get on with this particular video regarding the timing of that 1860 Army Pietta with a timing issue. So stepping inside, I have dedicated this portion of the building pretty much to my reloading. I only reload a few calibers: 30-30, 44 Magnum, 9mm, and 380. And so obviously you can see I have a lot more light, and this is just natural light. And kind of giving you a quick overall here. Yeah, I do throw darts, but the main reason for wanting to do this, let me go back this way and pan up to the loft. That's just some of the stuff that was normally stored in the house, now needs to be out here. And then coming around to the other end of the building, this is some of my shop material, working material, and then some more storage. And now most of this storage right here is some of my round ball that I sell at Rendezvous, some of my camping paraphernalia. A box down there on the bottom shelf is full of trade goods. This little container, the green one, is full of trade goods. But as you can see, those cans back there, those garbage cans with the lids, that's all my tents. And one of the reasons I needed to do this also is because where we live here, we have a high amount of mice, and in particular pack rats. And they just love the canvas, and so do the mud daubers. They're pretty much a wasp. But them things can even get underneath those lids if you don't have them secured tightly down, and they'll get into the canvas and they'll actually chew circles in your canvas. So that was one thing I had to do, and another reason why we wanted to invest in a building like this. But there again, a lot of this stuff that's right here was actually stored inside our house. Not so much this, but what's coming up here. That entire loft is packed from front to back. And so there again, it was just a necessary investment at this time in our lives, and it's going to work out well for us. So let's get on to the regularly scheduled video. So in my previous video, I had showed a problem with this revolver locking up when you set the hammer on an unfired percussion cap. Let me just demonstrate, because after that video it got me to thinking about homemade percussion caps and if they may present the same issue. Now, I had mentioned I had only ever seen one other YouTuber talk about this, and it's on the YouTube channel Old Ranger, and the title of that video in particular is Colt Black Powder Revolvers Checking for Potential Lockup. Thank you, sir, for doing that video, because what I really appreciated about that video is that he did a mock-up. He took a hammer and the bolt and he pinned it in place, and he actually had it actuating and working, so you can see exactly what's taking place and what's causing the problem for this particular lockup. In this video I'm going to address that, because obviously when you lower the hammer on an unfired percussion cap, well, you need to cycle it again without having to move the wedge in the barrel to allow you to do that. So I'm just going to re-demonstrate that here real quick. The next cylinder has a Remington number 11 percussion cap in place. Okay, going to lower the hammer. It's sitting on the percussion cap, and now it's locked up. And if you take a moment or two to go and watch that video that the Old Ranger did, in looking at how that mechanism works internally, thankfully, once again, now you have an external visual aid to see what's happening. And what's happening is it's one of two things. Yes, you could have a taller percussion cap. Some of the milling inside where the nipple threads into place may not be milled at the proper depth. But there is a way to fix this, and it really has to do with the cam and the bolt and one of the dog legs that actually rides on the cam. So I'm going to have to remove the wedge, get the cylinder off, and I want to try my homemade caps to see if they present the same issue. Stay tuned. So the percussion cap that I'm going to demonstrate right now is the percussion caps that I've made with the aluminum tin cans, and these snap caps, these little rings of snap caps. This particular brand, which I can't find anymore, but I still have plenty to go. This particular brand, if I can get a good enough view, I'll show you here. When you take an X-Acto knife and crisscross these and peel the little plastic cup back, the charge comes out. I don't know if the camera will pick it up or not, but it comes out glued to a piece of paper. And hopefully you can see that. Now, these particular caps that I've made out of the aluminum cans, I've got 2 of those inside the cap with some 4F black powder swept on top and then compacted down, and a drop of glue that's been really watered down, so they do stay in place. Now, as the Old Ranger mentions in his video, more than likely what the difference is your compound that's on the underside of your percussion cap, and whatever that difference is not preventing the hammer or the bolt arm to slip off the cam and make itself ready for the next cycle. So let's see if that works. I'm on an empty cylinder now. Here's the percussion cap. Cycle it, lower the hammer, and it's locked right up. That's it. it won't cycle because the dog leg of the bolt is still sitting on top of the cam. So let me do one more, because I've made some of these out of 5,000 sticks copper sheeting, and I have a different compound in those. So let me get repositioned and we'll discuss this further. So this next percussion cap, as I mentioned, is made differently. This particular improved bang cap, unlike the other one that's glued to the paper, it has a little bit of that compound. Let me see if I can't get this on the end of the knife blade and get you close up. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but there's the compound. Okay, so when I crisscross and cut it out, there's actually a loose piece of paper that's keeping the compound in place. Now what I've discovered is I can take two of this little bit of compound, put it in a percussion cap, and I can take what I actually use is a brass rod in a little wooden handle, and I can actually take and crush those two compounds together, and as they're crushed, bear in mind, gingerly, because these things do go off with pressure. But I can put two of those in a percussion cap, and I can take my brass punch, my brass needle, whatever you want to call it, and I can actually compress these back together, and they will actually stay in the percussion cap. Here's, I don't know, I know the camera's not going to pick it up as well as I can see it right here, but that's the compound crushed or reconstituted, however you want to say it, back into the percussion cap. Now, there is no type of glue or anything holding that in place. It just stays together when I go and crush it all back together. And I will tell you from experience, that's a lot more powerful than those other percussion caps I showed, not percussion caps, but those bang caps that I showed previous that are glued to the paper. So I've got one installed on the revolver. There's the cap, so let's see if it's going to lock up. It's locked up. So obviously there's a timing issue that needs to be resolved. So let me get resituated. I'm going to get the revolver part, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in the first step to determine where some metal needs to be removed. So before I go any further, let me kind of give you a visual aid to what we should be looking for. Should be the dog leg off of the bolt dropping back onto the hammer as it slips off the cam. And you can tell whether it's doing it at the proper time or not, because what the old Ranger demonstrated is, where do you hear that click to allow it to recycle? Okay, so here's the revolve at full cock and the hammer's coming forward. That next click you hear should be the dog leg falling off that cam, and it should be falling off the cam before the face of the hammer comes forward of the frame. And as you can see, there's that click right there. That should be falling off the cam back here. Okay, so let me do this again. See? So what's happening is, since the that dog leg is still on top of the cam, you're not able to cycle the hammer again because it's still engaged with your cylinder. So what I'm going to do is put some Sharpie black permanent marker on the dog leg. I'm going to reinstall it, cycle it a couple of times, because what I want to see is exactly where that dog leg is making contact on the cam. And I'll get to that in just a second here. So once again, that dog leg should be falling off the cam about right there, so that by the time the hammer finishes its travel, it should already be off the cam. But because it's not, and it's hitting the percussion cap about right there or so, it's not allowing the revolver to recycle. So let me get this apart. I'll show you what I mean by where to put the Sharpie mark. And then once again, please go to the channel Old Ranger and watch his working model, the mock-up, because you'll see precisely exactly what's happening. And in fact, in one of the scenes, while the revolver is locked up, he takes the guard off and he gets a close-up inside, and you can still see that dog leg setting on top of that cam. So let me get repositioned here, do what I gotta do, and I'll get right back at you. Alright, have it apart. And here's the bolt, and I'm hoping the camera can pick it up. You can see where I've colored in with the Sharpie. And as that rides up and over the cam, it should tell me where to remove some of the metal. Now, here's an absolute precaution, and if you have this issue, go slow. I can't reiterate that enough. I can't speak to that enough. And right now, I'm electing to take some of the metal off of the bolt, just simply because if I screw up, this is a lot cheaper to replace than a hammer. The other option is to remove some of the metal off of the cam. Let me get a pointer here. Remove some of the metal off of the cam. Now, in the past, when I have had to time my revolvers better, I've done the same thing, but I put the Sharpie. You could use Dykem, same thing, but at Sharpie you can get to it immediately. You don't have to wait for the Dykem to dry. But you can do the same thing, and on the channel Manny CA, he also does an in-depth tutorial on this procedure. But what I've done is I've actually colored in the cam with Sharpie, cycle it multiple times, and let those two areas work together. And where the Sharpie has come off of the cam, I would go and start removing the metal on the back side of the cam. And having looked at this cam under the microscope, I can actually see a spot that's more shiny than any other spot there is. So I'm going to reinstall it, cycle it multiple times, and I want to see precisely where I need to take the material off. And there again, you don't want to go too fast with this. So I have a slow RPM Dremel that I'm going to just make a couple of passes. I'm going to polish it up with 800 grit, reinstall it, and see what happens. So I'm going to get that done, and we'll see what the end results will be. So all I've done is just reinstall the hammer with the bolt, and you'll want to put the trigger or bolt spring back in place because you need some pressure on that hand as it rides on the cam. And all I'm doing is just working it back and forth just enough so that that Sharpie, the the ink that I put on it, the Sharpie ink, will wear off. So let me take this apart, and we'll see if I accomplish what I hoped to have accomplished. Okay, friends, my first attempt putting Sharpie on the back side of the bolt did not do what I had hoped it was going to do. there's a 1 or 2 little tiny scratches on top, and that's showing me where it's making contact. So what I did is I took the hammer off and I colored in the hammer with Sharpie, and I did the same thing. And I previously tried moving the camera out into the sun so that you can see the reflection of the cam where the Sharpie had come off. And unfortunately, it's breezy out there, and I'm thinking it'd have been too disruptive. So I'm going to try to get a little closer and try to move it around, and hopefully you friends can see where I need to remove some of the metal, which now has to come off the cam. And hopefully I won't screw this up. Once again, go slow. For the love of all that's holy, go slow. But let me get up here, and I'll see if I can't point to it also. But here's the cam, and if you can't see, it's probably not picking it up, so I'll describe it. With the entire top of the cam colored in, work it several times, disassemble it, and look at it. And what I'm showing right now is a minuscule amount needs to come off on this side of the cam. Okay, not the entire cam, just where it's shiny. And I'm really hoping, guys, you can see right here. Now, when you look at how thick that little portion is, that should be indicating how much of that compound plus the thickness of the percussion cap that is actually stopping the cam from stopping the bolt, the leg on the bolt, from dropping off. So I'm going to work at removing some of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to remove half of it. And it's not much. It's really, really not much. So I'm going to take 5 or 6 strokes, put some more Sharpie on top of it, reinstall it, actuate it, and then see if I still have to remove some more. So let me try to get that done and pray that I don't screw this up. I'll be right back at you. So just to reiterate, because I'm taking some of the metal off of the hammer, off of that cam. So just to reiterate, actuate it, take it apart, and look at where the Sharpie has rubbed off that cam. Now, this is my second or third attempt. I've taken a little bit of metal off of the cam, but I've also taken a little bit off of the dog leg from the stop. And what I did, so that I know where to remove some of the metal, I got it out into the bright sun and I actuated it. Let me turn it this way to make it easier for me. And as I explained, and as Old Ranger mentions, you want to be able to hear that fall off of the cam, just as perhaps the face of the hammer that strikes the percussion cap is either even or just behind this wall right here. But as you can see, and hopefully you can hear, I'm still forward, and it just now dropped. Okay? Now, whether you decide to do it even or just inside, what you'll want to do is to install your cylinder, and if you can, look at where the cap sets. And if you, let me put the cap back on because it fell off. there again, look at what's taking place. Okay, there's my full cock. The hammer drops. I'm going slow so I can see for myself. Let me turn it to the sun, or at least outside. See, it didn't drop. Now I'm putting enough pressure on the cylinder this way, okay? That cam didn't drop, and I'm already sitting on top of that percussion cap. So obviously, I need to remove some more metal. Now, as I was explaining earlier with this, when I had it in the sun and turned upside down, I could see better what portion of the bolt dogleg is still engaging with that cam. So I've removed a little bit of metal there. And there again, I'm going as slow as molasses on the coldest of winter days. Because at this point, knowing I have to take some off of the cam itself, I don't want to ruin the hammer. I would rather ruin the bolt than I would ruin the hammer. So I'm going to get back to work. Obviously, as I just demonstrated with the cylinder installed, the face of the hammer is hitting the percussion cap, and that dog leg on the bolt has not dropped yet. So I'm going to get back to work, and I'll let you know when I achieve some results. Okay, I'm not there yet, but I wanted just to show you some of the improvement that I have made. This is like my 4th attempt. This time I decided to put the revolver and everything back together just to make sure that other timing is still correct. So there's the percussion cap, full cycle. I'm going to lower it on the cap. Back quite a bit. Now, did you see what happened there? As I lowered it, again, a second time. Here we go. Let me show you again and see if you can pick it up. Full cock, drop the hammer, it's locked up. But I lower it again, and it frees up. So I'm just right at that point. And I will tell you, friends, in particular, on this old silver, this is some hard, and I'm going to say it, bearing material. Because with my other guns, I've been able to remove the required amount of metal with just a needle file. This, I'm having to do it with my Dremel tool, my slow RPM Dremel tool, and I'm real nervous in doing that. I'll tell you guys that right now, because once you take it off, you can't put it back on. And just to maybe ease your feelings a little bit about this, out of all the years that I've been shooting black powder guns, out of the different models that I've had, this has been the only one that I have experienced this with. In my previous timing issues, it's always been the bolt coming up too soon, and in particular on the Remingtons, and leaving an ugly peen mark. Not so much on these Colts, because a Colt has a little carrier, I like to call them a carrier cutout, so that when the bolt comes up, it has a channel to ride into, and you're not leaving any ugly peen marks behind as you would with the Remingtons. So just a thought with that. But whenever I've had to retime even my Remingtons, whether that be the Pietta or the Uberti, the metal was always came off easy with needle files. But this stuff, this is some hard material. I'm telling you that right now, and I'm having to do it with my Dremel tool. So obviously, just to reiterate, I've got some more metal to take off. There's the percussion cap, lowered the hammer. Oh, that time it let go. So you can appreciate just how close I am. And you know what? Maybe I'll just do that a number of times, because maybe there might be just a little burr left behind with the Dremel tool, and that's what's hanging up. I don't know. I'm just making a guess right here. Let's try that one more time. Full cock, lower the hammer. Now it works. One more time, because maybe I've got it. There it is. So that's probably what it was. I may have just had a little bit of a burr, and that burr's worked off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put all 6 percussion caps on, cycle it, and see if it works with all 6 percussion caps. So let me get that accomplished, or at least let me get the caps on there, and I'll work the cycle on camera. Give me a moment. Alright, before I work the action and kind of determine where we're at with all 6 cones with caps on them, one of the reasons why this may become important to some people and maybe not so important to others. When you're in cowboy action, you can only load 5 cylinders. So typically you lower your hammer on an empty cylinder. With this particular gun, at that point, the hammer has fallen far enough forward so that that dog leg on the bolt drops off the cam. Now for some guys like me, when I'm in the field, when I'm target practicing, and you guys have seen through the previous videos, when the caps explode, there's no problem in the cycling. But as I've said before, when I'm in the field or even when I'm shooting, I load up all 6 and then I cycle the hammer, or at least pull it back and drop it on that pin. Well, when you drop it on a cone, and well, this time it works. We'll lower it down. It's locked up. See, I can't turn that. Now, when I fiddle with it a little bit, see, it works. So I'm just at that point. Here's the next cone. Lower the hammer, and it works. It works. See, I'm actually hearing that that dog leg on the bolt drop off the cam. Well, maybe not that time. Yeah, well, like I said, I thought there was 2 that were just locking up, and there is, because what's trying to happen is that the hand that rotates the cylinder is trying to move the cylinder, but the bolt is still in place because that dog leg is still up on top of the cam. See, now it just released. So I'm just right at that point. There it released. There it released. See, it hung up. Like I said, I've got 2 that are hanging up. So that tells me, just from my own personal knowledge, that those 2 cones are probably maybe a thousandth or 2 taller than the rest of them. And that's one of the things that Old Ranger, alluded to, that maybe the cones are a little bit high. And he actually takes and shows you with the percussion cap installed, and he shows you the top of it, and it is just a little bit higher than the back of the cylinder. And I'm suspecting with those 2 cones, see, it let go. So I'm right at that edge, right at that verge. See, like I said, there, see. So for me, that's why it's important to resolve this, because I like to carry, like to load and shoot 6. But there is a precaution. When you load all 6, typically you're at, that point with the hammer half cock, and you want to be able to lower the hammer on a pin for safety's sakes, and then it works. But I got 2. I got 2 right there, which is telling me those 2 cones are a little bit taller than the rest. So I'm going to turn off the camera and do a little bit more metal removing. And for you, it'll be a moment in time. For me, It'll be a moment in time and a little tinkle. Stay tuned. Having taken that cylinder off, let me just reiterate the point. I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but I can tell you right now from my perspective, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these percussion caps that are just a hair below the top of the cylinder. And I can see that this cap right here, I don't know if you can pick it up, but this cap, at least on this side here, is protruding above the back of the cylinder. And that's why it's hanging up at that point. And it looks like this one is also. So I could elect to take a little bit off the cone, or I could take a little bit more off of the cam. And I'm going to go take a little pee break, and I'm going to think about it. Stay tuned. Okay. I think I've got it, except for one. I've taken out one of the ones that I perceive to be tall. So having taken that cone out, the one that it was hanging up the most, I went ahead and got my dial calipers back out and decided to measure that. And that one actually reads .540. So it's actually several thousandths taller than the other cones. So I'm electing to go ahead and just sand that material off and have it come down to about the .535, 536, whatever it is, just enough so that that hammer will cycle properly and that dog leg on the bolt will drop off. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work at this point. Alright, I did some sanding on that cone, and I managed to get it down to .537. I have a cap on it. Let me cycle it, and you'll see what the end result is. There we go. It's working. Let me get to that point again. Working. So, the three things that were wrong was the main thing was the cam and the height of the cone. So, before you do anything with the cam, you may want to check the height of your cones first. That will make a difference, as I just demonstrated right here. So before I completely run out of battery, once again, I cannot reiterate, if you're going to do this, go slow. And on this particular gun, being old silver and knowing that it's made, well, strongly knowing that it's made out of a stronger material, I actually had to use my slow speed Dremel tool to do this. So, once again, thanks for watching. And if you experience this issue, I wasn't afraid to do it. I just knew I had to go slow. So anyhow, hope everybody has a great day. And keep your powder dry. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up and hit that like button. And don't forget to share this with your bestest of buddies. Have a great day, guys. Bye. Look at that. Bye.